Alright, welcome back to part 12 of modding the original Xbox. In this video we're going to talk about how you can extract the EEPROM with a Raspberry Pi from either an Xbox that has a dead motherboard or an Xbox that has a dead hard drive. Neither Xbox was modded previously. And now that these issues have arrived, I'd like to go ahead and extract the EEPROMs from both of these motherboards. So before we get started, I figure I mention that if you're having trouble with your hard drive not working anymore, possibly a simpler solution for you would be just to install a mod chip like this Aladdin XT. Mod chips are fairly cheap now, and if your end goal is to install a mod chip or TSOP, perhaps this would be a simpler solution for you. So we're going to start with this one. This is a 1.6B Xbox. I've already gone ahead and soldered in the header to the LPC, as you can see here, as well as additional headers at the top for pins 13 through 16. I will have two separate end goals for both of these Xboxes. The first one will be to unlock this hard drive. It's currently locked with its Xbox HDD key, and we'll need to retrieve that from the EEPROM to be able to unlock it. The second Xbox will be able to build a new hard drive so that we can soft mod and then hard mod it. And to build a new hard drive, we'll need the original EEPROM to lock the hard drive to that Xbox. So for you to be successful in this tutorial, you're going to need a Raspberry Pi. I have a Raspberry Pi 3 Model B, as shown on the left side of the screen. And I've also tested this with a Raspberry Pi 2, shown on the right side of the screen. For this tutorial, I will be using the Raspberry Pi 3. You'll also need wire. This wire is male to male. I needed more female to female wires or male to female wires. So instead of using this type of wire, I'm going to be making my own. I used several different DuPont connectors, as you can see here, as well as some inserts, and I soldered all the wire to these DuPont connectors. You'll also need a way to connect your micro SD card to your computer. So these are the adapters I'll be using. If your original Xbox does not power on anymore, you will need an external power supply to supply 3.3 volts to the EEPROM chip. I'm using this old Dell power supply. Alright guys, we're going to go ahead and set up our Raspberry Pi. So to do that, I'm going to go onto the Raspberry Pi website at raspberrypi.org, and I'm going to click in the download section, and we're going to need the Raspberry Pi imager for Windows. And once that's downloaded, let's just go ahead and run it. We'll click install and run. So now we got the option to choose which operating system we want. Now that we're here, we're going to go and click on Raspbian Other, and I'm going to choose Raspbian Lite. And for the SD card, I already have one plugged in, and click Write. Okay, and then we'll just click on Continue and close out of this. Now that you have your micro SD card done, you can go ahead and plug that into your Raspberry Pi and go ahead and plug in a keyboard as well as an Ethernet cable and HDMI. And then you can plug in the power cord. It will start to boot up, and then we're going to start typing in some commands. Okay, so now we're at the login screen. We're going to type in the default username of Pi, and then the password is RASPBERRY. And now we're in. Now we're going to just make sure everything is up to date. So we're going to do sudo apt-get update. Then we're going to do sudo -get upgrade. There's Y. Okay, so now that our Pi is up to date, we can install Python SM bus. So we'll type in sudo apt-get install -y Python-SM bus. We should also do I2C-tools. That's already installed, so we're good to go. So now we have to configure our I2C. To do that, we're going to type in sudo rasp-config. And then we're going to navigate down to number 5, interfacing options. Then we're going to go down to P5 I2C, and we'll select yes. Now there's a couple other things we should do here depending on where you're located. Raspberry Pi typically defaults to the UK, so I'm going to go down to 4 localization options. I'm going to do change time zone, and I am in the US and Central Time. I'm going to change the keyboard layout also. That's fine. Now I'm going to go down to Other, select English US, and then pick this top one. And then enter my way through it. Now we can select Finish, and we should reboot the Pi. Once the Pi has finished rebooting, you can just unplug it for now. Okay, so I've got this little illustration here. I pulled off some websites. We're going to need to run a wire from our Raspberry Pi's SCL pin 5 to pin 13. And I've colored this wire as white. We'll also need to run a wire from pin 3, SDA, to pin 14, SDA. And I color this wire blue. And we'll need to run a wire to ground. Pin 6 on the Raspberry Pi to pin 2 on the Xbox. Now if your original Xbox power supply still works and you're able to get it turned on, this is the only wiring that you will need to do. If you are using an external power supply to power on your original Xbox, we have 2 more wires we have to do. The power supply that I'm going to be using has a SATA connector just like this, where it has 5 wires going into it. The wire on the far left side, closest to the notch, is the 3.3 volt wire. I'm going to cut this wire off this SATA plug, and I will also cut the wire next to it, which is the black wire for ground. I'll then add a connector so that I can plug this into my original Xbox. Here's what the wires look like with the headers soldered on. I then have some female to female adapters that I'll be adding onto these to plug into the original Xbox header. And now we can plug the black wire, which is ground, to pin 12, plug the 3.3 volt orange wire into pin 15. If for some reason your power supply does not have the 5th SATA 3.3 wire or doesn't have SATA at all on it, you can use any of the 3.3 volt connections on the 24 pin motherboard connector. Just remove any one of them as well as the ground, and you should be able to wire these into the Xbox. So the last thing we'll need to do is power on our power supply, but we're not going to do this just yet. We're going to wait till our Raspberry Pi boots up. But to do that, we'll just use a jumper to go between pin 16, which is the green wire, to any of the ground pins. After you do that, you should notice the fan on the power supply start to spin. Now when it's all said and done, you should have your connectors just like this. Go into your Xbox motherboard's LPC header. And then these tiny wires are hooked up to the ground and 3.3 volts on the power supply. So at this point, you should power on your Raspberry Pi. And then you're going to type in sudo I2C detect-y1. Now that we hit enter, we're not going to get any output back from this because we haven't powered on our power supply. At this point, we're going to turn on our power supply by plugging in a paper clip to the green wire and to any of the black wires. Now I've powered on my power supply. I will press enter again. And notice now that we have line 54. This is where our EEPROM is stored. Okay, so now that we know that our EEPROM is able to be read, we need to make the directory PyProm. We will change the directory into PyProm. Now we'll type in wget www.airspy.yc.com/mike/bcm2835 -1.42.tar.gz. We'll press enter, and so we'll type in tar zxvf bc, and I'll hit tab and it'll fill in the rest of it for me. Now we'll do cd bcm and then hit tab, /configure, make, sudo make check, sudo make install. Now we'll do cd .. Now we should type in sudo apt-get install git-all. Now I've already installed this, but you probably won't have it installed, so just run this command. Now we'll type in git clone https://github.com/risk510/PIPROM.git. And then type in cd./pyprom. Then we're going to type in make, and I'm going to type in P3. If you have a Raspberry Pi version 1, type in make P1. If you have a version 1 B+, make P1B. If you have a version 2B, make P2. And if you have a version 3, make P3. Okay, now if everything went smoothly, we should be able to type in ls, and you can see that we have a pyprom.a file. According to the guides that I looked at, this means that everything is all set. Sudo ./pyprom.a -r /EEPROM.bin. And we received the message that it was successfully dumped. Now we need to get the EEPROM.bin file off of the Raspberry Pi and onto our Windows computer so we can verify that it was successfully backed up. Okay, so you don't need to do this if you have a file share somewhere on your network that you're willing to back up to. But if you don't have a file share, let's create one. So I created a new folder here called EEPROMs on the local disk. And I'm just going to right click this and hit properties. I'm going to go to the sharing tab, advanced sharing, and select share this folder. I'm going to then click on permissions and make sure everyone has full control. After that, we'll just hit OK. OK, and close. Now we should run the command prompt. And open up the Run dialog box by pressing Windows R and type CMD. And then I'll type in ipconfig. And we'll have the IP address of our computer. Now, if you're using a computer with a Microsoft account, you should follow these steps as well. Open up the Run dialog box and type in compmgmt.msc. This will open up the Computer Management MMC window. In here, we're going to go to Local Users and Groups. Click Users. Select the administrator account. And uncheck Account is Disabled. Hit Apply and OK. And then right-click and hit Set Password. Click Proceed, and then set any password that you're willing to use. Press OK, and you should be all set. Now back on the Raspberry Pi, we will navigate backwards, and we will create a new directory by typing in mkdir, and this could be anything. We'll just type in EEPROM backups. Now you're going to type the following command in: sudo mount -t cifs -o username equals administrator / the IP address of your computer / the name of the folder that you shared. Mine was called EEPROMs. And then you're going to do tilde / and then the name of the folder that you just created. You can see on the line right above this, I created a folder called EEPROM backups, and that's what I'm going to link this share to. So once we hit enter, it'll ask us for the password that we just set. We'll type that in. And now if we navigate to EEPROM backups, we can see we have our shared folder. Now you won't have any of these files in your folder. I just had some of these from before. Now we need to copy our EEPROM over to our share. To do that, we will type in cd /pi and then hit tab for PyProm. pi, hit tab for PyProm, and then hit enter. You can type in ls, and we want to move the EEPROM.bin file over. I'm going to rename it. So now I will type in cp EEPROM.bin, or mine's going to be EEPROM6.bin, to tilde / EEPROM backups, and then hit enter. Now if you get this, that's fine. We'll just type in sudo right before it. So in my EEPROMs folder, I have the EEPROM6.bin file, and I'm going to use live info to open this file. To do that, I'm going to click Load EEPROM, and I'm going to select EEPROM6.bin. And now I can see my unique hard drive key, so we know we were able to back up this EEPROM successfully. Now that I have my EEPROM file, I can copy this to a floppy disk. And label it EEPROM.bin. Then we'll boot up an older computer that has the IDE hard drive that's locked, connected to it. We're now booting up off Xbox HDM. So we'll press 3. type in unlock HD-A. I'm going to press 1 for look on floppy disk, and then enter. And now you can see my hard drive is no longer locked, and the command completed successfully. Okay, earlier in the video I said that I would show you a Xbox that actually does still work, but maybe the hard drive doesn't work on it. So what I've done here is I have a 1.0 motherboard, and I'm holding the ground pin down as well as the SDA and SCL wires. Now actually the 1.0 that I have has the SDL and SCA wire slots desoldered, so I'm able to use a header to put into those pinholes. But the ground pinhole is still filled in. So what I decided to do was just to hold the ground to the side of the case, and now we can go ahead and try to read the EEPROM when it's turned on. And as you can see, I just rushed through that last section. It's the same as the first part of the video where I talked about all this stuff already. But here we are. I got the EEPROM copied over to my desktop, and I'm able to read the hard drive key. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Guys, be sure to like, subscribe, and leave me a comment on what other videos on the original Xbox you would like to see. Thanks for watching.